I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Sunday, guys. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys. I don't know what the weather is like where you live, but we are under a lot of snow here where I am. It is a snowy day. And it's one of those days where it's like, I don't know about you guys, but like when it's snowing, I just want to like cuddle up with a little blankie and a cup of cocoa or, a nice giant mug of green tea or something like that. So it's cold, it's snowy, but I still made it to the gym today. And I'm glad I went when I did, because if I were to go a little bit later, I would have to shovel out my car, which I'm going to have to do that anyway at some point. But yeah. So welcome, guys. We have interesting things to discuss today. I do want to go ahead and give you an update for this week. So this week we do have two special guests coming on. Max Blumenthal will be here, and also Cornel West will be here later this week as well. So stay tuned for that. All right, let's go ahead and give shout outs to people in the chat, and then we'll go ahead and jump right in. Shout out to CBC Voter, says happy Sunday, Sabby Sabs. Hello. Greetings, David, says Sabby, my Rumble will have political rants and Irish music I play. That is interesting. What's going on? Case Study QB, guys, always give Case Study a big shout out. He is the one that actually creates a lot of the clips that we use in Left Indie Media. Case Study QB says, happy Sunday, Sabby, for the 100K in 2024. That is a big wish there, Case. That is a big wish. I don't know. I would be shocked. So someone can timestamp this. I will be shocked if that happens. It took me a long time to get to, what am I now? 66K or something? It took me a long time to get to 66K. So we'll see. What's going on? Shirley says, happy Sunday, Sabby and Sabby family. Greetings, Hannah G says, Sunday is the fun day. Shout out to Eric, who's a Sabby member, says, hey, hi, one and all. We are buried in snow around here. Yes, we are. What's going on? Bad Cookie says, Nikki Haley doesn't think you can hit that like. Show her she is the Kamala Harris of the right by hitting the like. What's going on? Sebastian says, hey, y'all. Shout out to Cassie, says, time for the best part of Sunday. Doobie-doobie-doo. Greetings, Sean, says something to Bad Cookies. I think he's laughing at Bad Cookies. Shout out to P. Smith, who's a Sabby member, says, happy day, thanks. What's going on? Volvo to love says, hey, Cookie. And I'll tell you something about Volvos as well. I don't know if everyone's aware of this, but like, I don't see many people driving Volvos in the United States, but like when I lived in Germany, like that was a lot more common. And I wonder why that is. Maybe you guys can tell me. Shout out to Rick, says, hey, y'all. Greetings. ACAB says, hey, everyone. Also a Sabby member there. What's going on? Asunta says, hello, chat. Happy Sunday to everyone. Shout out to Red 6 says, hello, Sabby. Hello, Red. Thank you so much. And welcome. Will says, you rule, Sabs. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Shout out to Nicholas says, looking good, Sabby. Thank you. I'm feeling good today. I'm feeling good. CM says, is this live? Yes, it's live. CM. Shout out to Zach, the Celtics guy. Early for the first time in ever. Just gonna go listen to the doobie then skip ahead to live. Skip ahead to live. Interesting. Shout out to Regina, says snowing here in Canada. I figured. What's going on? People Unite says super cold in Northern California. In-house all day. LOL. That is interesting. Shout out to Matthew, says a joint in a video game. I guess that's what my Matthew does if it's snowing outside. Shout out to Wild Alchemical Spirit, says we had hail here in California Redwoods yesterday, but it's sunny and 47 today. Interesting. I didn't even think California would have hail. I do know I have a friend that moved to Orange County, Irvine area. And she said like it rained. She was telling me the story, like it rained one day. And she said that like people were like freaking out. Like all of a sudden people didn't know how to drive. Shout out to, and honey, I wish I could, Capiva. I hope that's correct. Says, hey, sending love from Athens, Greece. Shout out to Ashura, says, I thought Sabrina was done streaming on Sunday. I stream every other Sunday. Shout out to Venti Cafe, says Sabby, fire, solidarity. Greetings, Rondo, says peace, peace, peace. Shout out to Ellen, says hi all. And let's give it up for Die Netta Die, says good morning, Monday morning from Nepal. Interesting. Shout out to the international peeps in the house. All right, guys, let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. All right. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really do appreciate the patron love in the house. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: Ultimate, Sabinators, Sabsters, Sabbies, and of course, members. All of their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. Thank you guys so much. You're keeping the lights on around here. And this is probably one of the first days in a long time the lights are not making me hot because it's so cold outside. It's so cold outside. And shout out to Old Crow for becoming a Sabby member. Let's give Old Crow a big whoop whoop in the house. Okay. What are we talking about tonight, ladies and gentlemen? Let's go ahead and share that beautiful thumbnail. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Tonight we are discussing Cornel West versus Sean Hannity. Yikes. If you have not seen that discussion with Sean Hannity, get ready. I don't think that's one of those friendly discussions that Dr. West has had with Sean Hannity before. It gets heated. We're going to get into that. We're also going to discuss Nikki Haley's town hall. So there was a town hall for Nikki Haley on CNN. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to tell you what I think the Democratic Party is trying to do in reference to her. We're also going to discuss there is another shock that's happening here with Prince Andrew, and this is in reference to Jeffrey Epstein. But now King Charles is actually getting in the mix, and that's why I said, oh, snap. Because we're going there. And last but not least, if you have not heard this story, Netanyahu apparently checking CNN, and we'll get into that. And I'm going to tell you again why I believe that mainstream media is bought and paid for. So we will get into all of those stories tonight. I'll go ahead and address this here. Greg says, are you married, Sabby? Yes, I am. I have been married for several years, Greg. All right. We are going into the first story here. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but shout out to Daniel, who reported this through The Intercept. You know, for quite some time, I've been saying that mainstream media is bought and paid for. You guys know this, right? And I've also said that they echo the same talking points as the State Department. Well, now it appears that CNN has apparently been running their post October 7th coverage by Israel. I kid you not. Let's get into it. Interesting story here. CNN runs Gaza coverage past Jerusalem, team operating under shadow of IDF censor. The Jerusalem Bureau has long reviewed all CNN stories related to Israel and Palestine. Now it's helping shape the network's coverage of the war. So why is this story important? So that you'll understand why CNN has the talking points that they have in reference to this conflict with Israel and Gaza. This is a very revealing story here. I've been saying this for quite some time, but now we actually have evidence that this has been happening all along. And shout out to Daniel Bugaslaw, who reported this on January 4th. This came my way actually the other day. Whether reporting from the Middle East, the United States, or anywhere else across the globe, every CNN journalist covering Israel and Palestine must submit their work for review by the news organization's bureau in Jerusalem prior to publication under a long-standing CNN policy. Now, let me ask you guys a question. How is that not bias? Obviously, if there's certain content that CNN may want to air, if they're running the war coverage by Jerusalem first before they publish it, obviously they're going to tell them to remove pieces that appear to be more in favor of Gaza. Like, I can't make this up. I'll make sure to put this link to the article in the chat because I want you to share this article with as many people as possible. While CNN says the policy is meant to ensure accuracy in reporting on a polarizing subject, it means that much of the network's recent coverage of the war in Gaza and its reverberations around the world has been shaped by journalists who operate under the shadow of the country's military censor. And ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly why the need for independent media is so important. This is why you can't trust mainstream media. And once again, this points to the fact that, as I've said before, is this the United States of America or is this the United States of Israel? Because it seems like Netanyahu has been making a lot of decisions in reference to how things operate in this particular country. Like all foreign news organizations operating in Israel, CNN's Jerusalem Bureau is subject to the rules of the IDF censor, which dictates subjects that are off limits for the news organizations to cover. It censors articles it deems unfit or unsafe to print. Unsafe and unfit for who? Here we have the IDF actually censoring content from mainstream media in the United States. This is why I said, and I'll say this again, guys, the woman Mazi Philippe, who is running for Congress to replace George Soros. Remember I told you she was a part of the IDF? She has dual citizenship. We really need to question why the U.S. government is allowing people to hold political office on the national level when they have dual citizenship. If you have dual citizenship for another country, like I said, if a conflict were to happen with that country, 9 times out of 10, you are going to be favorable to that country. It's just common sense. Let's continue. As The Intercept reported last month, the military censor recently restricted 8 subjects, including security cabinet meetings, information about hostages, and reporting on weapons captured by fighters in Gaza. In order to obtain a press pass in Israel, foreign reporters must sign a document agreeing to abide by the dictates of the censor. I'm going to highlight this again. Check this out, folks. In order to obtain a press pass in Israel, foreign reporters must sign a document agreeing to abide by the dictates of the censor. In other words, journalists who want to report in Israel basically have to agree to be censored. CNN's practice of routing coverage through the Jerusalem Bureau does not mean that the military censor directly reviews every story. Still, the policy stands in contrast in other major news outlets, which in the past have run sensitive stories through desks outside of Israel to avoid the pressure of the censor. On top of the official and unspoken rules for reporting from Israel, CNN recently issued directives to its staff on specific language to use and avoid when reporting on violence in the Gaza Strip. Now they're telling their reporters what type of language they're allowed to use. This is why you have to support independent journalists. You have to support people like Al Jazeera. You have to support people who are out there on the ground. You got to support people like the Gray Zone, people who have been there covering from Gaza. The network also hired a former soldier from the IDF's military spokesperson unit to serve as a reporter at the onset of the war. This is very problematic. The network hired a former soldier from the IDF's military spokesperson unit to serve as a reporter at the onset of the war. So here we have an American network hiring someone from a foreign country to serve as the reporter at the onset of this war. So obviously the coverage is going to be biased. Obviously. The policy of running stories about Israel or the Palestinians past the Jerusalem Bureau has been in place for years. A CNN spokesperson told The Intercept in an email, "It is simply down to the fact that there are many unique and complex local nuances that warrant extra scrutiny to make sure our reporting is as precise and accurate as possible." But their reporting has not been precise and accurate as possible. CNN and all these other major networks basically ran with the beheaded baby story, then had to come back and debunk it. They ran with this story of one of the IDF soldiers walking through one of the hospitals. Remember the Al-Shifa hospital? Walking through the hospital, pointing to a calendar on the wall and basically saying, yeah, see this? This is Hamas. This is their plan here, Hamas. And it was a calendar, a basic calendar. The reporting has not been precise. The reporting has not been accurate at all. And we've all seen it. The spokesperson added that the protocol has no impact on our minimal interactions with the Israeli military censor, and we do not share copy with them or any government body in advance. We will seek comment from Israeli and other relevant officials before publishing stories, but this is just good journalistic practice. Are they seeking comment from Palestinians, from Palestinian journalists in Gaza before they publish their stories on CNN? No, they're not. They're only doing this in reference to Israel because that right there lets you know the narrative that they want to push is that the state of Israel is correct and the Palestinian people are wrong. One member of CNN staff who spoke to The Intercept on the condition of being anonymous here for fear of professional reprisal said that the internal review policy has had a demonstrable impact on coverage of the Gaza war. Every single Israeli-Palestine related line for reporting must seek approval from the Jerusalem Bureau, or when the Bureau is not staffed, from a select few handpicked by the Bureau and senior management, from which lines are most often edited with a very specific nuance that favors Israeli narratives. So when it comes to mainstream media in this country, these outlets, in reference to the United States, they repeat State Department talking points. Now we find out that these outlets are also repeating Israeli Department talking points, anything that basically favors the Israeli narrative. This is propaganda 101. The commentators that you see on these networks, people like Jake Tapper, people like Anderson Cooper, these people are just reading a script. There's a teleprompter in front of them, and they are just reading it. I know I interned in this. I majored in broadcast journalism. I know how it works. They're not doing actual reporting. So the script that is put before them, that's what they're instructed to read. And that's pretty much, for the most part, what they go with. They're not really questioning things. And if they were to question, those people are usually removed. This is why people like Mark Lamont Hill no longer work for these networks. When you go against the narrative, they'll get rid of you. So it goes on to say here, a shaky arrangement has long existed between the IDF censor and the domestic and foreign press, forcing journalists to frequently self-censor their reporting for fear of running afoul of prohibited subjects, losing their press credentials, and potentially being forced to offer public apology. CNN, like other American broadcasters, has repeatedly agreed to submit footage recorded in Gaza to the military censor prior to airing it in exchange for limited access to the Strip, drawing criticism from those who say the censor is providing a filtered view of events unfolding on the ground. And this is why it is incredibly important that a lot of us are paying attention to the video footage on social media. I can find out more about what is taking place in Gaza from Twitter/X than I can from CNN, MSNBC, or Fox News. It's just a reality. When you have a protocol that routes all stories through one checkpoint, you're interested in control. And the question is, who is controlling the story? That is coming from Jim Narekas, editor of the watchdog group Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. CNN's team in Jerusalem are the people closest to the Israeli government. I will say again, CNN's team in Jerusalem are the people who are the closest to the Israeli government. So there's not going to be any bias there, right? In a situation where a government has been credibly accused of singling out journalists for violent attacks in order to suppress information, to give that government a heightened role in deciding what is news and what isn't news is really disturbing. This is one thing that I agreed with Trump on, is when he called out fake news, right? Now, granted, he said that just in reference to CNN, but all of it's that way. It's CNN, it's MSNBC, it's Fox News. It's the narrative that they want you to hear. Now, some of you may question, why is it that they won't present both sides in a fair way? Because they don't want us to have criticism of the state of Israel. We have to understand, even when we looked at the Epstein situation, you connect Epstein to Mossad, to the Israeli government. You connect him to Alan Dershowitz, who is now being summoned by Netanyahu to go represent the state of Israel at the ICJ, to represent a foreign country. Dual citizenship, right? You have to look at what's really happening here, what's really taking place. You have to look at the fact that a lot of our politicians are bought and paid for by organizations like AIPAC and J Street. You have to look at the fact that the reason why President Joe Biden is not willing to call for a ceasefire is because Joe Biden has taken the most money from the Israeli lobby. That goes back to all the way back to 1990. He's taken the most. Always goes back to the money. While CNN used its standing to obtain raw footage of human suffering inside Gaza, it has also pushed out near daily updates delivered directly from the IDF to its American and international viewers, and embedded reporters alongside Israel soldiers fighting in the war. So here we have CNN basically taking information that's been handed to them by the IDF. Early in the war in October 26, CNN News Standards and Practice Division sent an email to staff outlining how they should write about the war. Here we go. Hamas controls the government in Gaza, and we should describe the Ministry of Health as Hamas controlled whenever we are referring to casualty statistics or other claims related to the present conflict. Now, why is that important to you guys? Remember when Joe Biden made that statement and said that he did not agree with the number of casualties that were being reported from Gaza? That goes straight back to what CNN was instructed to do. The media is the number one source of propaganda. If you can't shut down the media machine, it's very difficult to shut down the propaganda machine. So one of the ways that people have begun to do that, again, has been by the massive protests all across the globe. That has what has caused the media to change some of their narrative. They were pushed to do so. They're not going to do so willingly. So think about that. Every single one of them are parroting those talking points. Piers Morgan, for the longest time, questioned the casualties. Fox News, question the casualties. This is what they were all told to do. I do not believe that these instructions were just given to employees at CNN. Listen to this part. If the underlying statistics have been derived from the Ministry of Health in Gaza, we should note that fact, and that this part of the ministry is Hamas controlled, even if the statistics are released by the West Bank part of the ministry or elsewhere. Thus, if they tell people that the ministry of health is Hamas controlled, then it's supposed to make the public not believe the number of casualties. It's supposed to make them question what's being reported. And it does something else too. I want to get to this point. It also makes them think negatively about the Palestinian people. Now, think about what we just found out, and I want you to apply that to Russia and Ukraine. You don't think the same thing is happening with Russia and Ukraine, where these networks have been told any positive information that comes out of Russia, you are supposed to try to dispute it or make it seem like it's not valid, and that they are supposed to boost any information coming from Ukraine and Zelensky? It's all controlled, folks. It's all controlled. The email goes on to acknowledge CNN's responsibility to cover the human cost of the war, but couches that responsibility in the need to cover the broader current geopolitical and historical context of the story, while continuing to remind our audiences of the immediate cause of the current conflict, namely the Hamas attack and the mass murder and kidnap of Israeli civilians. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, they always start with October 7th. This is why you hear people like Piers Morgan say, but do you condemn Hamas? This is why all these pundits, I don't even care if they're on CNN or not. This is why all these pundits are always starting off this story with October 7th, because that's what they were instructed to do. Anderson Cooper should hang his head in shame. Piers Morgan should hang his head in shame. These people aren't speaking on behalf of what they feel in their self. They're doing what the Israeli government told them to do. They want you to leave out the history. This is why whenever they're having this conversation with someone like Cornel West or someone like Norm Finkelstein, this is why the moment they start to mention the history of this struggle, the commentator tries to interrupt them, because that is not supposed to be discussed. Again, they were instructed to start with October 7th. Now, compare that to Russia and Ukraine, where you'll see the same talking points taking place. I'm sure these networks were told, start with Russia invaded Ukraine. Don't tell them about what happened years prior to that. Don't talk about the Minsk Accords. Don't talk about NATO's agreement not to expand. Don't talk about that. Just start with Russia invaded Ukraine. And this is something I think a lot of people, just for whatever reason, at the start of that war could not grasp. You know, I listened to people that have been doing this for like a long time, and they were doing the same thing. They were falling for it. They were starting with who invaded who, totally forgetting the history prior to that. One more piece here, and then I want to show you something else that I think is important connecting this as well. The email further instructed reporters and editors to make it clear to our audiences whether either or both sides have provided verifiable evidence to support their claims. In a separate directive dated November 2nd, Senior Director of News Standards and Practices, David Lindsay, cautioned reporters from relaying statements from Hamas. As the Israel-Gaza war continues, Hamas representatives are engaging in inflammatory rhetoric and propaganda. Most of it has been said many times before, and it is not newsworthy. You see this? We should be careful not to give it a platform. He added, though, that if a senior Hamas official makes a claim or threat that is editorially relevant, such as changing their message or trying to rewrite events, we can use it if it's accompanied by greater context. And this has happened before with Afghanistan. Listen to this part. The language of the directives mirrors similar orders from CNN management at the start of the war in Afghanistan in 2001, when Chair Walter Isaacson ordered foreign correspondents at the network to play down civilian deaths and remind readers that the violence they were witnessing was a direct result of the attacks on September 11th. Does this all sound familiar, guys? Sounds familiar, doesn't it? I told you, we've been here before. We have been here before. Now, I want you to think about what I just told you. The fact that CNN basically is running their war stories in reference to Israel and Gaza by Israel through the IDF before they publish these stories. Think about that. And I want you to listen to this commentator on Talk TV. I want you to watch the way she berates this man. Obviously, he is on the side for Palestinian justice. I want you to watch the way she talks to him. Again, think about what we just learned and watch the way that she speaks to him, and you'll understand why. Listen to this.
You say you don't approve of...
And do you think that Israel is a democratic country?
I know that Israel is a democracy. They have elections.
No, this man is now has 4 courts against him because of 4 cases of corruption. This man knows if the war stops,
we haven't got time to do the entire history of Benjamin Netanyahu, who is not a popular figure in Israel. I'm not here to defend Benjamin Netanyahu. Mustafa, is it possible to...
Whenever I speak about Palestinian rights or Palestinian situation, you claim it is history. I'm talking about what's happening today.
No, I know, and
this is not history.
Can we just... You talked about how you don't want Israel. You're saying Israel, that October the 7th happened. You're placing that in historical context. I understand that. Please don't say that again. We don't have time for it. You've made that point 5 times already.
I don't know what you have time for.
Oh my God, for the love of God, let me finish a sentence, man. Maybe you're not used to women talking. I don't know, but I'd like to finish a sentence, sir. Anyway. So,
no, you are misleading the public now by claiming
right, I've got 20 seconds left. I'm not even going to bother trying to answer. If you don't think Israel's reaction is acceptable, what would have been an acceptable reaction to you? You've got 10 seconds left.
To end occupation and allow peace to prevail for both people.
That's their reaction. Brilliant. Yeah. Sorry to have been a woman speaking to you, but there you are. Doctor.
Okay. Let's break down what she did here. Watch this. This is what they do to try to shut down that narrative. Watch.
You say you don't approve
And
of...
do you think that Israel is a democratic country?
I
Netanyahu
know
is
that
destroying
Israel is a democracy. They
democracy.
have elections.
No.
Okay. Is Israel a democratic country? This is the talking point all the pundits use. Yes, because they have elections. We have elections here too. But we also have a DNC that will handpick candidates. We have a DNC that will remove candidates off the ballot, which is happening right now. We've seen this before. We have super delegates that go against what the voters want. We have an electoral college. We do electoral college. We don't do popular vote. We have elections too. RFK Jr. repeats that same narrative. They have elections. You guys see it now? This is the propaganda machine. Notice they all have the same talking points. Let's watch what else she does.
Oh, this man is now has 4 courts against him because of 4 cases of corruption. This man knows if the war stops,
we haven't got time to do the entire history of Benjamin Netanyahu.
So he's talking about the corruption of Benjamin Netanyahu. Here's another propaganda. This is another thing that they do. We don't have time. You ever notice this? We only got a couple of minutes left and we have to wrap up. Piers Morgan has done this before too. All of a sudden you don't have time. You knew how much time you had when you scheduled this interview. That's an easy way out. Okay. That's an easy way out. Listen, when I studied broadcast journalism and we were starting to do interviews, this is when I was in college, they even told us if you get in an uncomfortable situation, one of the easiest ways out is to say you're running out of time. So I know this, man. You can't fool me. Let's continue.
Who is not a popular figure in Israel. I'm not here to defend Benjamin Netanyahu. Mustafa, is it possible to...
Whenever I speak about Palestinian rights or Palestinian situation, you claim it is history. I'm talking about what's happening today.
No, I know, and
this is not history.
Can we just... You talked about how you don't want Israel. You're saying Israel that October the 7th happened. You're placing that in historical context. I understand that. Please don't say that again. We don't have time for it. You've made that point 5 times already.
I don't know.
Again, notice what she's doing. We don't have time. We're running out of time. We don't have time, but she's going on for quite some time here.
What do you have time for?
Oh my God, for the love of God, let me finish a sentence, man. I don't...
Now, this is another thing that they'll do. Now it is the guest who is being problematic. It's the guest who's being rude when the only one who's actually raising their voice is her.
Maybe you're not used to women talking. I don't know, but I'd like to finish a sentence, sir.
Now he's a sexist. You see this playbook, guys? You see this playbook? You see how this works? This guy actually was pretty calm. I don't even know what this guy was thinking at this point in time. But if it were me, I would just be like, what the hell is this woman on? Now, he can't raise his voice and he can't get to the same level that she's at because, again, she's already painted him as the boogeyman because he's defending the Palestinian people. So he has to remain calm. Meanwhile, she can act like this.
Anyway, so...
No, you are misleading the public now by claiming
right, I've got 20 seconds left. I'm not even going to bother trying to answer. If you don't think Israel...
Okay, watch this. She said she got 20 seconds left. Watch this.
This reaction is acceptable. What would have been an acceptable reaction to you? You've got 10 seconds left.
Okay, so you heard what she did, right? She said she got 20 seconds. All of a sudden, that 20 seconds got cut to 10 seconds. So now he only has 10 seconds to respond. And notice another piece of this propaganda. What is she doing? She said, well, how do you think they should have responded? This is another talking piece that you continue to see these pundits do. Well, what should Israel have done then? Again, they're trying to only focus on October 7th and forget everything that happened prior to that.
To end occupation and allow peace to prevail for both people.
That's their reaction.
And I told you how they respond when you mention the occupation. This gentleman said have peace for both people. She's objecting peace. This is the same thing they do with Russia and Ukraine. When people say we need to end the war and we need peace, you're the bad guy. I'm showing you all the propaganda today. Look at the look on her face. Watch this.
occupation and allow peace to prevail for both people.
That's a, yeah, brilliant. Yeah. Sorry to have, been a woman speaking to you, but there you are, Doctor.
And let's go ahead and end it with, once again, my guest is being sexist. When the only person who was rude, this video went viral on Twitter, by the way. The only person who was rude during this discussion was her. Now think about the article that we just read, that CNN is basically running this coverage by Israel before they publish it. You think that's just CNN? I don't think so. This is Talk TV. Talk TV is owned by who? Rupert Murdoch, another billionaire. He's on the side with Israel. He is not on the side of Palestinian people. Again, follow the money. Follow the money, folks. It's a damn shame. But shout out to The Intercept for getting that story. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. Thank you for the super chat, Meteor Dreams. The Black church is already shilling for Biden. That's usually to be expected, Meteor Dreams. Again, you got to think about the age demographic as well, right? Shout out to Zach for becoming a Sabby member. Let's give Zach a big whoop, whoop. Thank you for the super chat, Old Crow. We need to end dual citizenship for elected or appointed officials and also void government-funded security clearances for dual citizens. I second that, Old Crow. I agree with you 100% there. Thank you for the super chat. None of your business. Did CNN make a plane trip to Epstein Island? Oh, that's a good question. Thank you, P. Smith. Israel is killing journalists that report truth. Yes. Now connect it all back to them killing the journalists, the hospitals, etc. They're trying to prevent information from Gaza getting out. That's another way of controlling the narrative. Sebastian says we don't have journalists, we have copywriters. Thank you for the super chat, Wasim. In an interview with Owen Jones, Mr. Barghouti laughed and said that when she became triggered, they lost the narrative and showed their weakness. I could see that. And thank you for the super sticker, Grassy No. Whoop, whoop. If you have not had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash that like button. That helps me out with the algorithm. Thank you very much. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe and share. And we are moving on to our second story. So with everything that's been happening, I think some people probably may not have even realized that this took place. But CNN actually hosted a town hall with Nikki Haley. There was also one with Ron DeSantis. That one was a little bit more predictable. There are a couple of moments I want to discuss during this town hall. I want you to pay attention also to the way that they treat Nikki Haley, because it is very clear to me that CNN, which is technically supposed to be like the liberal network, CNN has no problem getting behind Nikki Haley in the event Biden doesn't pan out. And that's kind of what it seems like is happening here, that they kind of see Nikki Haley as their Republican Hillary Clinton, someone who's establishment, someone who is pro-war. Nikki Haley is not anti-war, and she doesn't claim to be. That's what they want. She's the one that the donors want. So even CNN is okay with giving kudos to Nikki Haley. And I mentioned that because I'm going to show you after this something that Vivek Ramaswamy said, and I want you to compare the two. The first clip that I want to show you from her town hall is this discussion about Donald Trump. Now, Nikki Haley is saying that chaos seems to follow him wherever he goes. Let's dive right in.
There are a lot of issues on the minds of voters here. And of course, with 11 days to go, one of the big ones is actually the state of this race and where things are. Josh Lemon is a portfolio manager, I know, at a local bank. Josh, you're an independent and you voted for Joe Biden in 2020, but you've said you plan to vote for a GOP candidate this time around. And as I was telling everybody watching at home, you're allowed to register right up until caucus night, right? So that's the way it works here in this state. So you're deciding between Governor Haley and Governor DeSantis. Go ahead.
Correct. And thanks for taking my question.
Thank you.
What is your strategy to overtake Donald Trump in the polls?
You know, I think that what you're saying is we've got momentum. We've got momentum in Iowa. We've got momentum in New Hampshire. You're going to continue to see us be strong in South Carolina. And really what it's been is it's been about, let's talk about where this is. I personally think President Trump was the right president at the right time. I agree with a lot of his policies. But the reality is, rightly or wrongly, chaos follows him. And we all know that's true. Chaos follows him. And we can't have a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos. We won't survive it. And you don't defeat Democrat chaos with Republican chaos.
So let me explain to you what Nikki Haley is doing here at this moment. Nikki is trying to win. She's trying to win over the base of Trump supporters or people that supported Donald Trump 2016 and also 2020, but maybe are shaky on supporting him now. People who left Donald Trump all completely. And she's also still trying to win over those Trump supporters who are supporting him right now. That's why she talks out both sides of her mouth. She's telling you she agrees with his policies, but at the same time, she's telling you that he's dangerous and we should not have him. Chaos seems to follow him wherever he goes. So this is Nikki Haley. She's trying to win over both of those sides. Now, do I think that Nikki Haley is going to basically rise above Donald Trump in the Republican polls? I don't think so. I think something a serious shift or something catastrophic would have to happen for that to take place, because whether you like it or not, Donald Trump does have a solid base that is going to stand by him no matter what. So do I see her beating him in the polls? No, I don't. But she could possibly be someone that Trump would look forward to as a VP. Now, she has gone on record and has said that she doesn't want to be his vice president, but we've heard this before, right? We've heard people say this before. As it gets closer and closer to the Republican nomination, she could change her tune and decide that she's okay with being vice president. Also, I want you to understand, pay very close attention to how nice they are to Nikki Haley on CNN. They were never this nice towards some of the Democrats that ran. And this is supposed to be the liberal network. They definitely weren't this nice to Bernie Sanders. Why? Because he was running on issues that would help the American people. Nikki Haley is status quo. They like people like her. Same reason why they like Hillary Clinton, right? Again, status quo. Same reason why they like Joe Biden, status quo. That's what they want to remain in place. And also, let's not forget, Nikki Haley supports the state of Israel. Let's continue.
Now is the time we need to have a new generational leader, one that's going to leave the negativity and the baggage behind and start focusing on the real issues that we have in the future. But more than that, Americans don't want another nail biter of an election. And that's what we'll get. Look at any of the polls, head to head against Joe Biden. Ron doesn't beat Biden. Trump, head to head with Biden. On a good day, he might be up by 2. The Wall Street Journal had him up by 4. I'm in every one of those same polls. I defeat Biden by 17 points. 17 points. That makes it bigger than the presidency. That's governorships, that's House, that's Senate, that's down to school boards. But more than that, you win by double digits. You're going into D.C. with a mandate to stop all the wasteful spending and get inflation under control, a mandate to get our kids reading again and take education back to.
Let's pause here for a second. Why do you think she's beating Joe Biden in these polls by like 17 points? Because I have an opinion. I think the reason why the polls may be closer between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, also it depends on which poll you're looking at, is because we've already had both of them as president of this country. Let's just keep it real. We've had Trump and we've had Joe Biden, and some people don't want either one, right? Some people that don't want either one are going to vote third party or independent. I'm one of those people. I'm going to vote third party or independent. But I think the reason why she may be beating Biden in those polls by a margin of like 17% is because, number one, Nikki Haley is status quo. Number two, Nikki Haley is not anti-war. She's pro-war. She's anti-China. She wants to go against China. She supports the state of Israel. Again, that's who they want. Even Donald Trump came out against the war in Ukraine. Even he had criticism and said, we would not even have this war if he was still president. Now, again, he's a politician, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. Let's just be real. But we didn't have new wars start on Donald Trump. Yes, there were still coups. Yes, there were still drone strikes, but no new wars. Under Nikki Haley, you will get a new war. And I want to be very clear. Under Nikki Haley, you will get a new war. That's what they want. Also, pay attention to what Nikki Haley chose to wear to this event. Let me show you something. Notice, and I don't think this was just coincidence. I'm thinking about this from a PR standpoint, and I'm thinking about it if you're trying to sell, right? Nikki Haley chose to wear a dark blue dress. Now, she is a Republican, but she knew she was going on to CNN. This is just I'm thinking, how would I do it, right? If you know you're going on CNN, you know, most likely, most of the people that are going to be watching this are going to be Democrats, maybe some independents, or some people that are just like, I don't know where the hell I stand or whatever. So I don't know whoever is advising her, but they knew how to play this. Nikki, don't you wear that red dress. You're going on CNN. You can wear the red dress for Fox News, but on CNN, why don't you wear the blue? Also, blue is a safe color. You guys know that? You can never go wrong with blue. Blue is cool. It's calming. It's comforting. Let's continue.
The basics, a mandate to secure our border, no more excuses, a mandate to bring law and order back to our country, and a mandate of a strong America that we can be proud of. That's what we're doing. That's what I think we need to do. It is time to move past President Trump, and it is time to start focusing on how to strengthen America and do this for our kids and our grandkids.
There was one thing you said there, and I know you've talked about him being, the chaos following him, but you did say something there I wanted to follow up on as people face this decision. You said, rightly or wrongly, chaos follows him. Is it rightly or wrongly? Is he the one who causes that chaos, or is he just the unwitting victim?
It's both. I mean, you see a lot of these cases they've brought against him are political in nature, and there's no basis on it. And then you see some that he's going to have to answer for. But look, I'm not telling you anything I used to tell him. I used to tell him he's his own worst enemy. And so I think at the end of the day, we don't need anyone who's getting in their feelings. We don't need anyone that's getting personal about anything. We have a country to save. And that means no more drama, no more taking things personally. I mean, you look at the situation, the differences I have with him is, first of all, I'm an accountant. We have got to get our economy back on track. And
pause for a second. So you notice what she just did there? Again, she's playing both sides. She's talking about both sides. So she is criticizing Donald Trump, but she's careful not to criticize him too harshly so that she doesn't have a chance of winning over some of the Trump base, right? So she's going to criticize him, but she's going to do so mildly. At the same time, Nikki Haley is going to tell you what he did that was right.
everybody wants to talk about the economy they had under Trump. But at what cost? At what cost? $8 trillion in 4 years. Our kids will never forgive us for that. We are having to dig out of it. So you may have had a good 4 years, but look at what we're paying for now. As of now, in a couple of years, we'll be paying more money in interest payments than we are in our defense budget. You know who notices that? Russia, China, and Iran. That's what happens there. The second thing is you look at how he deals with dictators. I think it's completely wrong. He praised China's President Xi a dozen times after China gave us COVID. You don't do that. He congratulated them.
Did you hear what she just said? Okay. Mark the China part. I can't talk about it too much on here, but mark the part that she said about China.
on the 70th anniversary of the Communist Party. We don't do that. When Israel fell to her knees, you're going to go pick a fight with Israel's prime minister because of some issue, personal issue you had with him before, and you're going to praise Hezbollah? It's just not what we need to do. We need to do this without emotion. We need to do this with a sane sense of how we're going to take America forward.
See? You see what she's doing? So, of course, she takes criticism to the fact of Donald Trump criticizing Israel, criticizing Netanyahu, which Netanyahu needs to be criticized. Everyone should be criticizing Netanyahu at this point. But you see what she's doing? Like I said before, who is Nikki really out to serve? Nikki is out to serve herself, and I would say Israel more than the United States. Let's just keep it real. And military contractors. Now, I want to show you something Vivek said. I'm going to show you how shady CNN is. We've been on CNN for a minute today. Vivek Ramaswamy said, this is the CNN town hall they do not want you to see. They forcibly removed it from YouTube earlier this month after it got 200K plus views in 12 hours. Yet, Nikki Haley's CNN town hall from 6 months ago still remains up there. Their gambit to rig the Iowa GOP caucus is shameful. So he is actually retweeting the town hall that he had December 14th, and I'll just show it here so you can see it. Just muting that for a second. You only see all that. But this was Vivek's town hall on CNN, right? Okay. What Vivek is trying to tell you is that apparently CNN removed this from YouTube. They removed the full version of it, but he said the one that they had with Nikki Haley was still there. The full town hall. So like I said before, the donor class wants Nikki Haley. They like her. The military industrial complex wants Nikki Haley because she wants to go to war. And some of these billionaires want Nikki Haley. So Nikki Haley is the one they're heavily pushing. I can't go one day without, whether I'm listening to the radio or I'm watching YouTube TV, without seeing a Nikki Haley ad. I was listening to the Sports Hub. For those who don't know, Sports Hub here is Boston local sports radio station. I was listening to the Sports Hub when I was on the way to the grocery store. Out of nowhere, I'm Nikki Haley. America needs something like, no. I just want to hear sports. I just want to hear about layups, free throws, touchdowns, and whether or not they're getting rid of Bill Belichick. That's it. I do not want to hear about Nikki Haley when I'm trying to listen to sports. But there she is. Her ads are everywhere. They're heavily promoting her. And she's got a lot of money. A lot of money. Now, there's another piece from this town hall I want you to hear where she reflects on her criticism, the comments that she had about the Civil War. Nikki said something during, you'll just see it for yourself. Just see it for yourself.
So I want to ask you about something that's been a challenge for your campaign over the past week. And this, of course, is referring back to New Hampshire, where you were asked to explain the cause of the Civil War. You obviously did not mention slavery. And afterwards, you came up, you said that was a mistake. In fact, you said it should have been the first thing that you said. So you did come out and say that. Chris Christie, though, came out and said that you gave that answer not because you're, in his words, dumb or racist, but because you're, quote, unwilling to offend anyone by telling the truth. What do you say to that?
No one's ever said that I am unwilling to offend. I offend plenty of people because I call people out when they do something wrong. What I will tell you is Chris Christie is from New Jersey. I should have said slavery right off the bat. But if you grow up in South Carolina, literally in second and third grade, you learn about slavery. You grow up and you have, I had black friends growing up. It is a very...
Yeah, she did it. We got two of them. Hold on.
From New Jersey. I should have said slavery right off the bat. But if you grow up in South Carolina, literally in second and third grade, you learn about slavery.
Okay. To that point, she is correct. But here's the problem. When she was confronted about the Civil War, that was actually in New Hampshire. And in New Hampshire, what you learn in the history classes in New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts is better with it. But the further north you go, you will start to see this. They're not teaching them the same things about the Civil War that we learned, those of us who went to school in the South. I'm just going to keep it real. And I've gone to school in the South and overseas. And I've had friends, I know people here that grew up in Maine and Vermont, New Hampshire, and they really don't know. They really don't know all this stuff. I've met people that grew up in towns in Maine where there were no African Americans at their school, and therefore it wasn't even taught. The Civil War wasn't even taught. So the thing is that, NIKKI, just because you're used to that and you know about it, because yes, she's right. In South Carolina, you learn about that from day one. That doesn't mean that everybody in New Hampshire is being taught the same thing that you're being taught in South Carolina. So there's that. Then there's this part.
You grow up and you have, I had Black friends growing up. It is a
She really pulled the I had Black friends card. NIKKI, no. Don't do it. People listen, just don't. Like, don't do the I had a Black friend, I have a Black friend, my brother-in-law is Black, I have another relative. Don't do that. Just don't. Just don't do it. But she went there. Let's continue.
very talked about thing. We have a big history in South Carolina when it comes to, slavery, when it comes to all the things that happened with the Civil War, all of that. I was thinking past slavery and talking about the lesson that we would learn going forward. I shouldn't have done that. I should have said slavery, but in my mind, that's a given that everybody associates the Civil War with slavery.
But it's not a given, NIKKI. That's the thing. Grassy Knoll said she watched Driving Miss Daisy. Oh my God. Jinho says Nimarata certainly has no Black friends now. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, again, like I said, the further north you go, you'll start to see how less and less of that particular moment in history is taught. So it's really interesting.
So when you talk about slavery being a constant point of discussion, being a point in where you go, my children growing up in New York, they learn about slavery in first grade too. Can you share what the discussions about slavery were like? In your household, you've talked about experiencing humiliating discrimination when you were a little girl, things you remember. What were the discussions about slavery like for you?
I mean, I think that no different than anyone else in South Carolina. I mean, we had the time that I came and grew up, we were the only Indian family in a small rural southern town. We weren't white enough to be white. We weren't Black enough to be Black. They didn't know who we were, what we were, or why we were there. So we dealt with our own challenges. And I remember when I would get teased on the playground and I would come home, my mom would always say, your job is not to show them how you're different. Your job is to show them how you're similar. And it's amazing how that lesson on the playground played throughout my life. Because whether it was in the corporate world or as governor or as ambassador, when you're first faced with a challenge, if you talk about what you have in common, people let their guard down and then you can get to a solution. So when you talk about slavery.
So let me tell you what I gathered from the advice that was given to her by her mom. It's really interesting considering at one point in time earlier on, Nikki Haley's father actually worked at a historically Black college in South Carolina. So that's really interesting that she said that came from her mom. But let me tell you what that really means. It sounds like to me the way that Nikki kind of took that was to hide a part of who she was. Yes, it's true that you can talk about the things that you have in common with people. Yes, you can get to solutions that way. But this explains a lot. This to me explains why Nikki doesn't go by her full name, which she probably got teased for growing up in rural South Carolina, especially during that time. We got to remember Nikki Haley's in her 50s. So going back during that time. So think about that. So she probably got teased on about her name. And it almost kind of seems like in an attempt to focus on more so what she had in common with the majority, it almost seems like she was willing to suppress a part of who she was in reference to her Sikh heritage. That's what it seems like to me.
It was not just slavery that was talked about. It was more about racism that was talked about. It was more about, you know, we had friends, we had black friends, we had white friends, but it was always a topic of conversation, even among our friends. And in the South, we're very comfortable talking about it because we know that's what it is. But the goal was always to make today better than yesterday. And even though that there was, you know, a lot of hardened thoughts on that there, I mean, we went through it. I dealt with my share of dealing with race issues. We had the tragic shooting of Walter Scott. He was an unarmed black man that was shot in the back 7 times by a dirty cop. And this was on the heels of Ferguson. South Carolina could have caught on fire, but we didn't do that. I talked to the Walter Scott family. I talked to law enforcement, and a month to the day at the bill signing, we had them both there, and we signed the first body camera bill in the country.
So you know what she's leaving out? I noticed she doesn't seem to be as comfortable talking about some of the things that she went through. She said she had to deal with discrimination, but notice she's not really giving concrete examples. So I'll tell you one. When she was running for governor of South Carolina, a member of her own party in South Carolina was against her running for governor because she was Sikh, not because she wasn't qualified. He explicitly said during this point in time, and this is when Obama was still president, he said, we already have a raghead in the White House. We don't need another one in the State House. That was 2010.
A month later, we had the horrific shooting at Mother Emanuel Church when a white supremacist went into a Bible study and took 9 amazing souls. The entire national media came in wanting to make it about gun control and racism and death penalty. And I said at the time, there will be a time and place we have those conversations, but right now we have 9 souls we need to lay to rest. And I didn't have that luxury because 2 days later, the killer came out with his manifesto and he was draped in the Confederate flag. And the Confederate flag had always been either on top of the State House or right in front of the State House since the year 2000.
I told you guys, what did I tell you? Because I went to college. I graduated from the University of South Carolina. I told you that flag was always at the State House. Now, this is one thing that she did do that I think she did a good job with this. She got a lot of pushback for it, but she did do this.
And it is incredibly sensitive and a personal issue in South Carolina. And I focused that next day. I said, I want to have 4 meetings. I want to call Republican leadership. I want to call Democrat leadership. I want to call the congressional delegation, and I want to call community leaders. And I told my staff, don't tell them what this is about because I knew they wouldn't show up. And when they came, I said at 3 o'clock today, I'm going to call for the Confederate flag to come down. And if you will stand with me, I will forever be grateful. And if you won't, I'll never let anyone know that you were in this room. And it was a tough thing, Aaron, because we had to have 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate. And to bring a divided state together and avoid riots and protests, the way we did that was I knew half of South Carolinians saw the Confederate flag as heritage and tradition. The other half of South Carolinians saw it as slavery and hate. My job wasn't to judge either side. My job was to get them to see the best of themselves and go forward. And South Carolinians showed what true strength and grace look like because we didn't have protests, we had vigils.
So that's actually incorrect. There had been protests in South Carolina, particularly in Columbia, South Carolina, over the Confederate flag in front of the State House every year I lived there. So from the time that I was a senior in college and those couple of years I stayed in South Carolina after that, when I was working in Columbia, South Carolina, there were protests in front of the State House in reference to the Confederate flag issue. So the thing is, Nikki Haley wasn't always right on this issue. In the beginning, I remember her defending it actually. So what I want you to understand is that it took that shooting to happen for Nikki to want to make that change. But it shouldn't have taken that shooting to happen at the church, the shooting from Dylan Roof. It should not have taken that for that to be your deciding decision. That shouldn't have been the one for it to be your deciding factor, because people have been protesting about it. People had raised concerns about it for years. That didn't just happen out of nowhere. I'll let her finish here.
We didn't have riots, we had prayer. And South Carolina led the way, but that is the way we have to work on issues that try and divide us, is don't go and pick who's right and who's wrong and who's good and who's bad. That's what leaders are doing now, and it's caused us to be completely in political disarray. A leader doesn't decide who's right. When you serve the people, you serve everybody. And your job is to give them all the information you have and let them know where you want to go going forward.
But no, leaders do decide who's right and who's wrong. Leaders have been doing that since the beginning of time. Greg Bruce says, it's not my job to tell the racist people that they are racist. There you go. That's basically what she's saying to you in so many words. Now, another thing that I think was interesting that also took place at this town hall, which I don't know if many people have discussed this, but apparently Laura Loomer, who is the Trump supporter, some of you may remember her. Apparently, she also appeared at the town hall. And let me show you what Nikki Haley did in reference to Laura. Apparently, she didn't want Laura there. So Simon Atiba says, breaking, Nikki Haley unleashes cops on diehard Trump supporter Laura Loomer. Like, this is wild.
Because might as well just record. I don't know what's the problem though. We're here for an event. Like, I'm just standing here.
I'm asking you to leave.
I mean, like, this is a presidential campaign event, right? Can you just explain to me, like, why you're asking me? Why? Can you just explain to me, like, why you're asking me to leave?
Because they want you to leave.
Why?
It's private property, miss.
Right, but it's an event. I'm standing here. Like, what's the issue?
Will you please gather your things and leave, please?
I don't understand. Like, what's the issue? If you work for Nikki's campaign, why? Why? I'm standing here. I signed up for the event.
I told you. That's all I was advised. And now I'm asking you to move from the premises.
What's the point of having town halls if you're just going to kick people out? She wants to be the first female president, and she's kicking a woman out of her event.
I'm not here to answer questions. If you have any comments or concerns, you can contact them.
Well, I mean,
I'm here to do security, so please move.
You guys sent me an email. I got your text blast, and it said to sign up for the event. So what is the issue?
I'm asking you nicely.
Well, I think I'm asking pretty nicely as well.
And I don't have answers for you, I'm sorry.
Right.
I just got advised that you must leave the premises, and that's one thing. So I apologize. Thank you.
All right. Nikki Haley, anti-woman.
Have a nice day.
So Laura Loomer's, I guess her response was like, okay, so someone who's running to be the first female president chooses to kick out the female of the event. So I don't know what prompted that. They didn't really explain prior to her being removed. They didn't tell her why they wanted to remove her. But just like that, Laura was gone. like Laura was gone. But yeah, but pay attention to what's happening, folks. You know, again, like I said, the establishment really does like Nikki Haley. At first, Ron DeSantis was going to be their guy, but I guess they realized he wasn't going to be as popular as they wanted him to be. Also, he doesn't really seem to have much personality. You know, he's not really charismatic, doesn't really know how to read the room, things like that. So he's just kind of like a fly on the wall. So Ron DeSantis doesn't seem to be working out for him. So for them, for the next bet was Nikki Haley, right? And it seems to be working so far for them. Like I said, notice the way the CNN commentator spoke to her versus how they spoke to some of the people that ran in the Democratic Party that were running on Medicare for All. So think about that for a second. Let me go to some of the comments here. Trauma Queen says she's dressed like a 1950s housewife. Says a lot. Yeah, she kind of had the dress that she was wearing. It looks like something you would have seen Mary Tyler Moore wear or whatever. Like, you know, you're going to make it after all or something. It looked kind of like that, or like Leave It to Beaver. Look like that kind of style of dress. I don't know. Maybe that's coming back in style. Thank you for the super chat. Obama murdered his. I'm not going to read that name. Ain't nobody voting for Nikki Haley. Thank you for the super chat, DC. The polls are fixed. Iris says, absolutely, Sabs. I love your hair color, by the way. Oh, thank you. I took it back a little bit darker for the new year. Thank you for this one as well, DC. CNN funds most of the official university polls. Thank you for the super sticker, African82. Thank you for the super chat, Layla. Why campaign when both part is controlled by Zionists? People calling America, United States of Israel. Yes, they are. Thank you for the super chat, Penny Arcos. Aiden Gertler looting Congo since 2012 with Dersh EVs. Thank you for that. I have to check into that, sure. And thank you for the super sticker, Far. We're going to move on to our next story here. So a couple of days ago, I actually talked about the Jeffrey Epstein documents that were unsealed. There has been recent news that has been released in reference to Prince Andrew. So first, I want to start with what some of the victims had to say about Prince Andrew. And then we're going to jump forward to present day, and we're going to hear about what is happening in reference to the royal family. Although Prince Andrew has no chance of actually conquering the throne, he's just not in line to do so, obviously. He would not be next in line, so it would never happen. But it appears there are some pretty damning acts that are taking place right now. Where King Charles, I think, has just probably had it in reference to the Epstein information that's been released. Let's start off with this clip here from CNN, where you hear one of the victims again come forward about Prince Andrew, and then we'll get into what's happening today.
The training started immediately. Everything down to how to be quiet, be subservient, give Jeffrey what he wants. And you know, before you know it, I'm being lent out to politicians and to academics.
Years later, in a 2014 court document, one of the women, Virginia Roberts, who today goes by Virginia Giuffre, claimed she had been an underage sex slave to Epstein, claiming he forced her to have sex with some of his powerful friends, including Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, once at an orgy on Epstein's Island. She would have been 17 at the time. The prince emphatically denied all of it. In 2022, Prince Andrew settled with Giuffre for an undisclosed amount, and a U.S. district judge agreed to dismiss her lawsuit against him. Weeks earlier, Buckingham Palace stripped him of his military titles and, according to a royal source, told him he could no longer use His Royal Highness in any official capacity.
So I just wanted to play that for you there, just as a reminder that they did actually decide to settle out of court with Jeffrey Epstein, or excuse me, with Prince Andrew. But that was before these recent documents have been unsealed. And now it is putting the spotlight on the royal family once again, in words of, what the hell are you guys going to do about Prince Andrew? And I want to say something before we get into this recent news today. I don't know if you have watched the show The Crown, but I have. I've seen all of the seasons. And there is particularly one episode where they do focus a little bit on Prince Andrew, not much. But one of the topics of discussion is Prince Andrew sitting at the dinner table with the Queen. And he is talking about dating girls that are way younger. Now, they don't go into too many specifics, but it shows the Queen pushing back and saying that she doesn't really think it's a good idea. But the point that I'm trying to bring to your attention is, even in The Crown, they alluded to it. It's probably one of the only episodes where they actually even give you a glimpse of Prince Andrew, because they're usually focused on the other characters. But even in The Crown, they alluded to it. The royal family knows about this show. I didn't see the royal family come out and speak out against that particular episode. So just keep that in mind. Now, This was released from the Daily Mail. It says that King Charles is preparing to stop paying for Prince Andrew's home security at Windsor Royal Lodge, as unsealed documents say the Duke of York enjoyed daily massages at Jeffrey Epstein's Palm Beach lair. And another thing we have to highlight here are massages. Remember, Virginia, one of the girls came forward and said, a lot of times when they use that word massage, that was actually a sexual act. So just remember that. Let's go down here. King Charles is preparing to stop paying for Prince Andrew's home security at the Royal Lodge. Pressure is mounting on the Duke of York as unsealing hundreds of pages of court documents connected to Jeffrey Epstein scandal continues apace. The latest tranche of papers, which have heaped fresh embarrassment on Andrew, claimed the royal enjoyed daily massages. Again, we're going to do the quotes around massage because I told you what one of the victims said that really means, and stayed in the Blue Room at Epstein's Palm Beach lair. Ghislaine Maxwell also claimed there was a Prince Andrew puppet at Epstein's New York property after the royal was accused of using it to grope a young woman. The Duke, who has consistently denied any wrongdoing, has also been accused of taking part in an underage, let's just say, free-for-all there. In a fresh blow to Andrew, the Telegraph has reported that he will have to fund the multi-million-pound security costs at Royal Lodge himself if he wants to stay in the 30-room mansion in Windsor Great Park. Now, this may not mean a lot to us because we're not royal. I don't even live in the UK, but in the world of the royal family, in the world of the monarchy, this is actually a big deal because this is basically King Charles telling Prince Andrew, you're going to have to foot the bill yourself. Now, as someone who is royalty, he's not supposed to have to do that. So that move from King Charles, this is the first of moves. There could be more that follow. But that move from King Charles is actually significant in reference to the monarchy. Remember, it's a brand first. It's a family second. Let's just keep it real. So let's go down here. And then there's Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And it says pressure is mounting on Andrew as legal papers connected to Jeffrey Epstein scandal continues apace. And it pictures there. And then you'll see here, it says the Duke will have to fund the multi-million-pound security costs at the Royal Lodge himself. So that's the property. You can see there. Let's go on. It says the move will be seen as the monarch distancing himself publicly from his younger brother, who less than 2 weeks ago walked to church with the royal family on Christmas Day. Buckingham Palace said it does not comment on security matters. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer, the former director of public prosecutions, yesterday backed calls for Scotland Yard to launch an investigation into the claims made about Andrew. Now, remember last time when police tried to serve Prince Andrew papers, they claimed they could not find him. I just showed you where he lives. I said back then that was an excuse. When the police want to find you, they'll find you. Okay? So there's that. Now, just keep this in mind because this is really important. Again, this is basically King Charles distancing himself from Prince Andrew, which I said when this information was first revealed back then, I said all of them should have done that. I didn't think Prince Andrew should have still been walking in parades with them, going to events with them. I said, you guys need to seriously distance from Prince Andrew. Again, if you go and watch The Crown and you see the episode, I have to look up which episode that is. You see the episode where the Queen was trying to tell him back then, that this was not a good idea for him to be going after those kind of girls. This has been going on for a long time. This is not something that just started a couple years ago. And I believe they knew. I don't think it was just the queen. I think they knew, and I think they didn't really know, like, okay, what do we do? Or we've heard these rumors. Andrew, is this true? I don't think they really wanted to bring attention to it, but it came out anyway. New revelations from the unredacted legal papers show how Epstein's former housekeeper claimed Andrew had daily massages when he allegedly spent weeks at Epstein's Florida home. Juana Lessie, who worked at Epstein's Palm Beach residence, said both Andrew and his ex-wife, Sarah, Duchess of York, were friends with Epstein and now convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell. It comes after a source told the Mirror that Charles has told his brother he won't be abandoned. Charles promised his late mother he would not abandon Andrew once she was gone. Now, why would he have to make that promise to the Queen? Right, because this was already an issue before. And that remains the situation, unless, of course, he finds himself engaged in a criminal manner, they said. The Duke greeted well-wishers outside church in Sandringham, Norfolk on December 25th, with Sarah back in the royal fold and at his side. But he was caught demanding to know why fans who had stood in the cold to see the royal family had their cameras on. But as the new year began, previous allegations Andrew sexually assaulted Virginia 3 times when she was 17, including during an orgy, resurfaced in newly published court documents. He strenuously denies the claims and in 2022 paid millions to Ms. Giuffre to settle a civil case out of court, saying he never met her. So again, just remember, he paid her money. And I always said this before, you pay, you look guilty. And even if he didn't pay, I still would think that Andrew was guilty. Let's continue on here. And there's the picture. So again, this is the girl in the picture at the time. That's Virginia. That's Prince Andrew. And this is Ghislaine Maxwell. So there's that. Now let's continue on. Let me address this because some people are just trolls. For your UKR, but Sabby won't talk about Trump partying with Epstein. It's on vid. We've already covered that. We are focusing on the new information about Prince Andrew today. Stop being lazy and do some research. Moving on. So this is Virginia, that's Prince Andrew, and this is Ghislaine Maxwell. So let's go on. Okay, and this is Prince Andrew, and this is Sarah here. Now that's his ex. They're not together anymore. And this gentleman here, this is Juana Lessie, all right? So he's the one that worked for Epstein as a housekeeper. The Metropolitan Police said no new investigation has been launched, but Mr. Starmer said where credible accusations are made, they should be investigated. Sir Keir said, I think whenever there's a complaint made, it's inevitable that it should be looked at. I mean, we have to start with the victims here and look at what allegations have been made. I've seen the headlines on this, not the detail, but frankly, whoever it is, where there are allegations, credible allegations made, then of course they should be looked at. Republic, the anti-monarchist group, reported the Duke of Scotland Yard and is calling for the accusations to be properly investigated in the UK. During his videotaped interview under oath in 2009, Mr. Lessie was questioned on the Duke's relationship with Maxwell and Epstein. Lawyer Catherine Ezel asked whether Andrew and Sarah ever had massages at the Florida home. Again, we have to remember when they use that word massage, what they're really talking about. Mr. Leslie replied, Prince Andrew did. I think Sarah was there only once and for a short time. I don't think she slept in there. I cannot remember. I think she was visiting Wellington and she came to the house and we met her. But Prince Andrew, yes, Prince Andrew spent weeks with us. Mrs. Azell then asked, where would he sleep? Mr. Alessi said, in the main room, the main guest bedroom. That was the blue room. The lawyer then said, and so when he would come and stay during that time, would he frequently have massages? Mr. Alessi replied, I would say daily massages. Again, remember what she said about the word massage. I want to go into this clip here as well. King Charles will never allow Andrew back to royal life. Let's go to this part here. This is also from Talk TV. I'm going to scoot up just a little bit because she says shout out for something that has nothing to do with this. But let's go ahead and get into this clip as well.
Josh, it's not going to be enough. What he's already done in removing the HRH, in taking away his, his ability to host things and as a royal member and going to doing work. I don't think that's going to feel like enough.
I mean, but this is the thing, and I actually had this conversation on American television this week because they asked me, is the king supporting his brother almost? Because you have to remember, yes, there's the public side of the monarchy, the crown, the institution, but they are a family at the end of the day. And King Charles, he loves his brother. He loves his brother dearly. This is still a son of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. So on one hand, you've got a real kind of personal conflict here. You've got to put the crown first, the institution first. And as you said, there's not really, and as Charlie says, there's not much more that can be done as well. And actually, there's a very interesting story in The Sun this morning, how aides have told The Sun specifically that the king will never again allow Prince Andrew to come back to royal life to fulfill any more royal duties. And it was
odd that he let him.
So you hear that, guys? So that's basically King Charles taking a stand and he's saying, no, I don't know. Look, you got too much stuff going on and it's bad. Again, like you guys got to understand, again, the monarchy, like it's a brand. Like it's not just, yes, they're family members. Yes, that's his brother. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to protecting the monarchy and what works best for the monarchy as an institution. And then it's like the family part is second. One of the things I noticed too, and I've read a lot about the royal family, but one of the things I've noticed as well is that Queen Elizabeth, because she became queen at such a young age, and she just had to jump right into the job because her father died, right? They were not expecting him, obviously, to pass when he did. So she was very young when she became queen. So she had to jump right into that position. But the thing is, she didn't really raise her children. She didn't really raise Charles and Andrew and all of them. You know, they had nannies that raised the kids. And that's another thing that is also mentioned throughout The Crown is that there was this need, obviously, from her children to feel like they actually had a mother who was just their mom and not the queen. We'll play a little bit more here.
The Sandringham walk.
No, but that's the thing is, okay, it could be a public occasion where they appear in public, but that is actually specifically a private engagement.
Wrong.
No, but it's the whole family though, and bearing in mind, they sent a real message by including the Duchess of York, Fergie, in that too, because that shows that they are united as a family first and foremost. But the story in The Sun today is really interesting because the aides have said that King Charles had to, quote, take the trash out and caught.
So you hear that? He had to take the trash out. Orcs says UK legal age is 16. Yes, but these events happened in Florida. So it's not 16 in the United States. That's the thing.
He has revealed that the decision to never again allow Andrew to partake in any sort of royal duties, that was actually taken before King Charles ever went to the throne and that came to the throne. And there's even more details because they say that King Charles, he found it very difficult. It was the hardest decision. He's his brother.
not
He
that
cares
hard
for them.
decision if your brother's been accused of
But
stuff like
what
that.
it says is he knew it was the right thing to do. Someone had to take out the trash. And it's also been reported that at Christmas time, yes, they did the walkabouts together. But behind the scenes, it's been reported that Prince Andrew apparently was, quote, lurking and ready to pounce on his, quote, kind and generous brother, according to aides. However, aides kept them apart. He was not sat near His Majesty the King at lunchtime. They were apparently not allowed any one-on-one time either. So,
well, so much for caring for your brother then.
No, but the thing is, there's caring for a brother on a private level, but then there's keeping the institution safe, and that is what King Charles is very much focused on doing.
That part right there, keeping the institution safe. I wonder what else is going to come from this. I don't know. I mean, I think there's more information still being released, but I question what else will happen in reference to Prince Andrew, because again, the royal family, they have a lot of skeletons in their closet that actually are no longer, some of them are no longer skeletons if you watch The Crown. Some of them are no longer skeletons if you watch The Crown. I'm just telling you. But again, it's all about protecting the institution first. And if that means that Andrew, they have to distance themselves from Andrew, then that's what they're going to do. If you haven't had a chance to do so, don't forget to smash that like button. Thank you very much. We'll go to some of the comments here. I'll grab the comment on Rockfin, and then we'll get to the final story tonight. So let's go ahead and do that. Shout out to Mia Lynn for the super sticker. Thank you so much. Thank you, Daniela. Very late to the show, but love from the UK. You know what? I look at, every now and then I look at my YouTube analytics. There are a lot of people watching from the UK. I don't know if it's because of some of the stories that I've covered or whatever, but there's a lot of people watching from the UK for whatever reason for my show, and for whatever other reason, Australia, which is really interesting. Thank you so much for the super sticker. Juliet sends love. And thank you, Frank. F these folks. We love you, Sabby, and all you do. Thank you so much for the super chat there, Frank. Okay, and I'll take the comment on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, JVB. Okay, Eric T, you triggered me. Love your show. Thank you so much for that. We're going to our final story tonight. I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but Sean Hannity, boy, I tell you, he's something else. He seems to be one of the few people that's willing to have conversations with some of the candidates that mainstream media or liberal media doesn't really want to focus too much on. For example, he's interviewed Marianne Williamson multiple times. He's interviewed Cornel West multiple times. He seems to be a little bit more willing to have those discussions with people that other networks seem to want to, let's not give them too much attention. And he's interviewed Cornel West before, but there was something different about this particular interview. And I think Sean Hannity got under Cornel West's skin a little bit more so this time around than before. Now, one of the things that they're talking about, of course, is this issue with Gaza. You guys know Dr. West, for the longest time, has been on the side of the Palestinian struggle. Like, he has been vocal about this. He was prevented from receiving tenure at Harvard University because he said, no, we need to respect the Palestinian people. So Harvard didn't want to give him tenure. People should have known back then that Harvard was who Harvard was responding to Zionism, right? So Dr. West was someone that had it right before October 7th. And there are others that have had it right before October 7th. But people still speak to him in such a way as though he doesn't know what he's talking about. So let's always remember the people who are right on this issue beforehand. Those of us at RBN, we were right on this issue. I wasn't always right on the issue, but once it was explained and I'd heard both sides, that's when I realized what's happening to the Palestinian people. No, that's fucked up. We started talking about this 2.5 years ago. Here's Cornel West once again having to defend the Palestinian people. This conversation gets a little tense. Here we go.
Right, as we have been covering, Harvard President Claudine Gay resigned this week amid serious allegations of anti-Semitism, multiple allegations of plagiarism. Take a look at your screen. Here's an example of alleged plagiarism discovered by the Harvard Crimson, and here's yet another example uncovered by the Washington Free Beacon. And these are just a few of the close to 50 total allegations of plagiarism made against the Harvard president. That's President Gay. Now, yet many on the left, they are insisting that Claudine Gay was forced to resign for no reason and was the victim of racist attacks, including my next guest, Dr. Cornel West, who tweeted after Gay resigned, quote, "How sad but predictable that the same figures and forces enabling the ethnic cleansing and genocidal attacks on Palestinians in Gaza, Ackman, Blum, Summers, and others, push out the first black woman president of Harvard. This racism against both Palestinians and black people is undeniable and despicable, and I have experienced similar attacks from the same forces in academia, and too many of my colleagues remaining silent."
Let me pause here for a second. So again, he's calling out Bill Ackman, who we've called out on this channel, Blum, Summers as well. And yes, of course, Cornel West did go through the same experience. I worked at Harvard. I worked at MIT. I worked at Boston University. So I understand where he's coming from in reference to this as well. Harvard University is just, and I tell you my take on this. I really do think that we have to get out of this mindset that as African Americans, that we need to push ourselves into spaces where we know we're not welcome and we're not wanted. So when people said, like, for example, when Mark Lamont Hill said on Twitter, the next president of Harvard University needs to be a black woman, I'm like, why, if she doesn't have the support network that she needs in order to do well and be successful in that position? Why? Just so we can say that Harvard has a black female president. So those kind of things bother me. If you don't have the support network in place, then what are you doing? And at Harvard, I can tell you a lot of people, they don't have it. They don't have it. So these institutions, in my opinion, have really never been for us. And I just don't understand why the need to try to fit ourselves into those places. We continue.
And when big money dictates university policy and raw power dictates foreign policy, the moral bankruptcy of American education and democracy looms large, but we shall remain strong in our fight for truth, justice, and love. Well, my former friend, I don't know if we're friends anymore, Dr. Cornel West, I mean, you always call me Brother Hannity, and I know you teach divinity, but Dr. West, really? This is really beneath you, if you don't mind me being very blunt. For you to go to the race card and say that Dr. Gay was pushed out because of racism, that's not why she was pushed out. You know the code of conduct as well as anybody at Harvard. You almost got tenure at Harvard. You understand it well. And you know that if similar comments about the elimination or genocide of any, quote, identity group, African Americans, people in the LGBTQ plus community, if any of these comments that were made against the Jewish people were made against other groups, you would not be saying that's racism. And she had a moment where she could have stood out and strongly condemned it and not supported it, and not said, well, it depends on the context. She would still be president today. Why?
First of all, let me go ahead and correct something that Sean Hannity said there. First of all, she did condemn it, but she didn't condemn it as far enough for people like Bill Ackman. I covered this a couple of days ago. She actually did say that they couldn't use those phrases anymore. She actually did push back against that. She actually did condemn them, but she didn't do it as fast enough as, let's be real, the Zionists wanted her to do it. That's what this is about. And it's really interesting to me that Sean Hannity was willing to have this interview and bring up this discussion about Claudine Gay, but he don't want to bring up what was just revealed about Bill Ackman's wife doing the same damn thing. So just pay attention to that. Again, going back to the story we discussed earlier, talking about who these networks are supporting and who these networks are censored by. I don't think it's just CNN, again, that is being censored by the IDF, being censored by the state of Israel. I think all of them are. So keep that in mind.
Why did you sink to this low and claim racism?
Well, I didn't sink to that level, though, brother. Let me tell you exactly what I said, and I hope you understand.
I have it in front of me
very clearly. One, no, I don't know, but I know Sister Gay. She doesn't have an anti-Semitic bone in her body. She didn't speak strong enough. I had a critique of that in the Boston Globe. It was a weak response at the Congressional Committee, but that does not mean that she's anti-Semitic. It doesn't mean she ought to resign. You know and I know there's been attempts to impose tremendous pressures on universities with big money donors dictating various conditions under which they will give, and there's been attempts to reshape universities. Now, you and I know there's orthodoxies in the universities, that I'm against all orthodoxies. There's no doubt about that. But the very notion that you think it was about plagiarism, that's window dressing. Lawrence Tribe plagiarized from Peter J. Abrams much more than she did, and he remained a prize professor at Harvard Law. Doris Kearns plagiarized. There's a whole host of folk who plagiarize and don't get this kind of vicious treatment. When she says in her notes, she's called the N-word a zillion times, racial animus, death threats, people coming at her with white supremacists attacking bombardment.
Cornel.
That's what she said.
Cornel.
You're going to say it had
Cornel.
nothing to do with race? It had nothing to do with race, brother? Come on,
Cornel.
come on.
You know me a long time. I condemn anybody that ever said anything racist about her or to her or threatened her. That cannot exist. You're hearing that directly from me. But what you're saying here is not what you're addressing.
That means you criticize the people who were trashing her. You criticize the people who were trashing her.
No. You said it was racism that resulted in her being removed. Now, also, if you believe in rigorous academic standards, there are up to 50 allegations of her plagiarizing. Now, if a student of...
And to the point that I like to continue to bring up, the plagiarism thing isn't something that just appeared out of the blue, okay? So we cannot sit here and pretend like this hasn't happened before. Is it correct? No, it is not. But why would they let so much time go by and not report the plagiarism earlier on? Like I pointed out a couple of nights ago, and you can go watch that clip. Having worked in this field, every student that defends a dissertation has a thesis committee. The committee reads the thesis prior to the defense. So the fact that they read this thesis or skimmed through whatever they were doing, same thing in reference to Neri Oxman, who was out there copying and pasting shit from Wikipedia and put that in her thesis. Hello. The fact that they supposedly read their work and they gave them the green light to go and defend it anyway is a problem within itself. And that also points to the fact of, are these universities, the Harvards, the MITs, the Yales, etc., these elite academic institutions, are they really worth it in the long run when it comes to academic rigor? Or is it more so about networking at these institutions? Because I know people who have gone to Harvard. My best friend went to Harvard, and they will tell you that it's difficult to get into Harvard, but she'll tell you once she was there, it was not that much different from her public university that she attended. The main thing that happens at a lot of these schools is the networking. Who you can rub shoulders with. Doing those out-of-town trips. Participating in the abroad trips while you're at Harvard. And by the way, that costs money. The university doesn't pay for that. So a lot of times, if you're not rubbing elbows with the right people, you still may not get what you want. But I would tell people, look at Harvard like this. Harvard is a networking institution. That's what it is. That's basically why a lot of people go there, so they can rub shoulders with the right people, to help them get the right job. That's pretty much how it works. MIT is a little bit different because you do have to do, it's math and science based. It's a little bit different, but even there, you still want to rub shoulders with the right kind of people. So it makes people look at these universities in a different light. Are they really worth the tuition that they're charging if they can't even pick up on basic plagiarism in a thesis?
Yours plagiarize something, I would imagine they probably get an F. I would imagine they might even be brought up for disciplinary action, maybe even kicked out of school. But the reason that she should have been disciplined here, and I don't call for firings, is because her answer was pathetic. Antifada from the river to the sea. They're talking about eliminating an entire group of people. That is...
They're still spreading this lie. Remember what we said about the article from The Intercept. All this has been approved by the state of Israel before they go forward. So the thing is, again, guys, think about who they're speaking for. They're all repeating the same lie. Student protesters can say this over and over again. That is not what they are calling for. But mainstream media continues to repeat that lie.
That should be unacceptable, and you should be leading that charge, not blaming the people that were angered by her remarks.
I stand against any genocide, brother. I stand against the genocide of your Irish brothers and sisters. I stand against the genocide of black people. I stand against the genocide of Jews. But I also stand against the genocide of Palestinians. And it's no accident that some of the same people who were behind pushing her out, Ackman himself, Summers himself, whole host of Bloom and others who have been against affirmative action, they also won't say a mumbling word about the genocide against Palestinians. Well, so would you tell me you're concerned about genocide? Have you said a mumbling word about the genocide against Palestinians, brother? Have you said a word against the Palestinians?
I'll tell you right now.
The genocide Palestinians? I want to hear you say a word
had the elected leaders in Gaza not committed the act of murder and terror against 14.
So this is Sean Hannity. He's deflecting here. He doesn't want to answer the question, has he condemned the genocide against the Palestinians? Because the answer to that question is no, he has not. Again, these people, these networks are working for the state of Israel. They are going with their narrative.
Israelis,
against
which would be the equivalent of 40,000
against the Irish,
which would be the equivalent of 40,000 Americans. Let me tell you something. If anyone killed 40,000 Americans in a day, I would want to fight and win the war. They started that fight. They're the ones that use innocent people as human shields. They had their headquarters under a hospital.
10,000 children in 2 months, brother? You come from an Irish.
Sean Hannity, see, this is the thing. Sean Hannity is not a journalist. Sean Hannity is entertainment. And you can tell by the way that he does the delivery. And again, notice what he did. Notice what I told you about the propaganda. They're the ones that started it. He's going to start with October 7th instead of focusing on what happened before October 7th. They did this with Afghanistan. They did this with Russia and Ukraine. This is important for people to understand. They don't want you to know the history. They don't want you to know the truth. They only want to push forward the message that the State Department is telling them to push and what's approved by the state of Israel. And we need to start looking into this. Who's funding Fox? Yes, we know Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch is on the side of Israel.
People who've been treated
What do you want?
Bad.
What do you expect Israel to do?
About it.
What do you expect? Israel was a victim of terror, and you need to end the siege and end the occupation.
You end the siege and end the occupation.
Excuse me, it's not an occupation.
See this? You see what's happening here? See, I told you, they've already been told if the guest comes on and they call out occupation, you push back and you say there is no occupation. They all have the same talking points. It's just With all the wars that I've seen in my lifetime, I don't understand how people can sit back and listen to mainstream media and not question all of the wars based on what we've been told. We were lied to about the war in Iraq. They lied about Afghanistan. They lied about Saddam Hussein. So for some crazy reason, people like Sean believe, oh, maybe they're telling the truth now. And I don't even really believe, thinking about it, that Sean believes that. I think Sean knows the truth. Sean is an actor. He is playing a part. And as long as Sean continues to play that part, Sean will continue to get paid by Fox News. That's how this works. You can't tell me these people have been doing this for all these years and they don't look behind the scenes to see what else is happening. They know the damn truth. So he goes on to say, there is no occupation. Typical playbook.
You expect what? Israel was a victim of terror, and you were blaming the victim.
Siege and in the occupation. You end the siege and in the occupation.
Excuse me, it's not an occupation. Israel has not occupied Gaza for many. Haven't been in there for many years.
Oh, no,
they've offered the money. They've offered the aid.
Brother. No, no.
I've been there.
Cuckoo land. You live in cuckoo land. There's no occupation
cuckoo land is where you live.
Come on.
No. Well, if you look at these, where did the money for the
No, let's get back to occupation. Let's talk about occupation.
The money from the terror tunnels
occupation, then
Professor,
it's hard to proceed.
Let me ask the question.
It's hard to proceed, my brother.
See, this is how you talk to Sean Hannity. Because now Cornel West basically pushed him in a corner, and Sean Hannity is the one saying, let me ask a question. Let me ask the question. Usually it's the other way around. Usually Sean Hannity doesn't let the guest speak. I've seen this even with people that he supposedly likes. I've seen him do this to Republicans too. They come onto the show and he doesn't want to let them talk. This is how anyone watching, if you go onto Sean Hannity's show, this is how you talk to Sean Hannity. You cannot be nice to him. You cannot try to, chat it up with him. You have to continue talking. You have to interrupt him before he tries to interrupt you. Then you push him in a corner, and now he's like, will you let me ask the question?
It's hard to proceed.
Where did the money from for the tunnels of terror, where did that come from? Where did the electricity come from? That came from America. That came from Israel to better the life and the people of Gaza. But
the tunnels that were built under Al-Shifa Hospital were built by Israel. It's just, you can see the acting. Look at it.
Hamas, the terrorist group that has sworn the destruction of Israel, used that money, built their command centers onto hospitals. They fired their missiles from schools and hospitals, and they used all the people in Gaza as human shields. They committed acts of terror. They started a war, and they're losing the war.
Defend Hamas. Hamas commits crimes against people. I'm asking you to tell the truth. If people cut off water, if people cut off electricity, and cut off food, and you say there's no occupation. If people control air and sea and land, and there's no occupation, you don't want to listen to the truth.
There's no occupation.
You don't want to listen to the truth.
It's factual. You're factually inaccurate. Now I'm going to ask you a last question.
You're wrong as two left shadows,
Harry Truman used.
How is there no occupation when the people can't even leave? How is there no occupation, Sean Hannity, when the people can't even leave Gaza? They're fenced in, but there's no occupation? There's no oppression when Israel controls all the resources that go into Gaza? Stop sitting here and pretending like the Palestinians in Gaza are free people. They're not free. Free people can walk out the door. Free people aren't fenced in. And you can point to the same with the West Bank. How's there no occupation? You don't see these people being dragged out of their homes. And Israel is still building illegal settlements in the West Bank. Nobody is stopping it. Nobody. The UN, with all these long ass letters that they like to write. Nobody stopped it. It has gotten to the point now where people are saying it's the IDF. It's not just the IDF. If you look at the videos in the West Bank, there are actual Israeli citizens who have taken up firearms to push the people out. Not everybody that you see on the video with firearms are a part of the IDF. This is another thing that has been revealed. But there's no occupation. Get out of here, man. Get out of here.
2 bombs, one in Hiroshima and one in Nagasaki. It ended World War II against Japan. Let me ask you, is that the right decision?
Those were war crimes, my brother. I am consistent. And we need to sit down and have a long discussion of what an occupation is, because you come from an occupied people, and you ought to be ashamed that you can't point out what occupation when other people are occupied.
You are.
And this is another good point to mention. Extra info. Did Sabby just say that Israel built the tunnels in Gaza? Does she really believe that? I said, in reference to the hospital, the Al-Shifa hospital, Israel built those tunnels under the hospital. This was confirmed by an Israeli representative on CNN. And Christine, the commentator, was so shocked by that, she had to ask the question again. Excuse me, did you say that Israel built those tunnels under the hospital? And he said, yes. Learn how to listen. I'm not taking any heat today. I'm going to let you know right now. I'm not taking any heat today. It's 2024. You come correct or you go to fuck home. Let me let this finish.
Are better than using the race card. Dr. Gay, she was guilty
That's not the race
not
card.
only giving the wrong answer.
It's the truth,
she was
brother.
giving aid and comfort to She was giving aid and comfort.
The N-word against her. That ain't no race card. That's her life. That's her life. That's her loved one's life.
I condemn anybody. I condemn anybody that did that. You know me.
I want to hear the condemnation. I want to hear that condemnation. I just want to hear it, my brother, because I know you got something good in you. I'm trying to tease it out.
She had an opportunity to condemn those. She had an opportunity to condemn those and speak out against those that were responsible for murdering innocent people, and she equivocated.
But that doesn't mean she's not anti-Semitic, and anti-Semitism is not running large at Harvard, brother.
If she's that weak, she has no
fight is not running wild.
If she's that weak, she has no business running Harvard. But
she's not running Harvard. She was never running Harvard. None of the presidents of these universities are actually running the university. Donors run the university. Bill Ackman is one of the examples you can point to show you that. You had donors like Bill Ackman, Jeffrey Epstein, threatening to withhold donations. Another story that came out about Bill Ackman too, in reference to another run-in that he had with Claudine Gray. It wasn't just about this particular issue. Something else had already happened before in reference to donations. He wasn't too happy about Harvard not including him in certain spaces. So he felt like, I gave you money, so now you need to listen to what I say to do. So this wasn't a new issue. That has now come out. So it is what it is, folks. But these universities are not run by the presidents. They are run by donors, by big money. Harvard Business School, another one. You have people like Robert Kraft, owner of the Patriots. They donate to these schools. Michael Bloomberg donates to Harvard. And of course, people like Bill Ackman. Those are the people that run the institution, not the president. The president is a puppet. And as you just saw, they could easily have those people removed as well. Sean Hannity knows this shit, man. Pardon my language. Sean Hannity knows this. He's such an actor, man. Such a freaking actor. But you guys see what's happening here. They're continuing to repeat the lie over and over and over. And it'll be what, 10, 15 years from now when these commentators, these pundits finally get the green light and they finally acknowledge, oh, it turns out by the way, that definition wasn't anti-Semitic. It turns out, by the way, that Israel did do these crimes. He had the audacity to bring up Hiroshima. We were supposed to learn from Hiroshima, Sean. We're not supposed to repeat it. But he'll tell you not to do this in reference to Ukraine. He'll say, let's get out of this. But when you change the country to Israel, all of a sudden, it's okay. Thank you for the super chat, Patch. All love, all the time. That's what's on my mind. Thank you for the super chat, Colombo. Why is it so hard for Israel to give their land back and give them the military army like the other countries? I wouldn't even say it's hard. Israel just doesn't want to do it. They don't want the Palestinian people there at all. Thank you, 100% Black Roke. Depends how north you are in California. I'm in the East Bay, California. It's warm/cool. Interesting. 100 Black Roke has been a member for 5 months. Whoop, whoop. Thank you, Frank. Get him Cornell. I'm telling you, that's how you have to talk to Sean Hannity. You can't be nice to him. Thank you, Charlie Mack. Hannity is absolutely insufferable. And thank you, Unemployed Scholar. Good on Dr. Cornel West for facing that gas bag. I know, right? So that we don't have to. All right, guys, that is it for me. Again, later on this week, Max Blumenthal will be here and Dr. Cornel West will be here. So stay tuned. We got a lot coming for the new year. Other than that, guys, I'm heading out. Hit the like. And have a good night. Keep up the fight.